Okay, good morning, students. Hello.
Very good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. We will start the class. Already it's 10:10. Yesterday we have started with the biological classification of the organisms. Now the same thing I'm going to repeat. Now this PPT that I'm sharing actually has been given in detail. So again, once more we will refer. Already we have covered a lot in yesterday's class. And we have concentrated only on the classification, biological classification. What do you mean by classification, history of classification, and what are the different, what do you say, the types of classification? Like we have discussed about artificial system of classification, then natural system of classification, and then we have also talked about the phylogenetic classification. Now, after that, we have also discussed about the different classification system classification or classification systems like two kingdom classification system, three kingdom classification system, four kingdom, five kingdom, six kingdom. That is nothing but the three domain classification system. And we have seen what are the merits as well as the demerits. Now, in spite of all those things, actually today, most of the scientists actually they follow only the five what do you say, the kingdom classification, because Whittaker was the scientist who has introduced this particular classification, and he has considered most of the characteristic features, and that is the reason why it was accepted by many of the scientists all over the world. And after that, they have later modified and given the six kingdom classification, but in that case also they have not included the viruses and lichens yesterday, as I told you. And also it is very time consuming, and the scientists need to go into the minute details of each and every what do you say, the organism. So that is the reason why most of the scientists they follow today also the five kingdom classification system only. Okay, now again we will just discuss at zoology level. I mean, what do you mean by species, what do you mean by speciation? Okay, and what are the different zoology types? I mean, these are the questions which are being constantly asked. So that is the reason why today I'm going to again tell you what in detail you have to talk about. So yesterday's class was on biological classification, remember, different types of classification. And also we have talked about the different types of classification systems. Now, again, the same way, yesterday already I have talked about what do you mean by biosystematics. So don't get confused. Biosystematic, what do you mean by biosystematics? What is taxonomy? And what is classification? Now, biosystematics, as you all know, it is nothing but biological systematics or biosystematics, one and the same. So here in this biosystematics, it is nothing but what is a clustering of the groups of organisms. Okay, where the different organisms or the life forms need to be discovered, identified, described, named, classified, and then you have to categorize them. So all of them, whatever the organisms that you have identified, that you have to group them based on certain principles. Any characteristic feature you can take, okay, especially based on their evolutionary significance. So that is what we call it as nothing but biosystematics. That means in a systematic manner, you have to do it. Now, next is what tax classification. Classification is what nothing but the grouping of the what do you say, the information or the objects which are based on similarity. So here classification is nothing but arrangement of organisms into different groups. But here in systematics, what we are doing, we are combining all the groups, okay, based on certain principles. Whereas classification is what, arranging the organisms different into groups based on their similarities. So whereas taxonomy is what, nothing but naming of the organisms and then classifying them and then categorizing them into different classes or into different groups. That is what the taxonomy says, classification says, as well as the systematic. So don't get confused. These are the three different what do you say, the concepts that you should be clear. Now, taxonomy. So you all know the science which deals with describing, classifying, and naming of organisms. Now, taxonomy, hierarchical taxonomy means what? Now, actually, it is not that easy to classify or to give describe a particular organism, to classify a particular organism, and also name it. So for that, actually, what you have to do is you have to certain what do you say, principles are there, the ways are there which you need to adopt if you want to go for the naming of the organisms. So what are those? So first of all, what you have to do is whatever the specimen, suppose any specimen you have it in front, how you are going to identify that specimen, how you are going to label it, how you are going to. So first and foremost, what you have to do is to get the specimen identified by a professional. First, you need to identify that specimen. Then you have to compare it with the labeled specimen in a collection, whatever it is. Then you have to compare it with the other images as well as illustrations. And then with the descriptions, And also you have to use certain identification key. And after that, you have to, what you do is after this, you have to combine two or more of these procedures and then you have to name it. So these are certain ways, okay, you need to know for the identification of any particular organism. So here they have given for the identification of an insect, what you need to do. An example they have given. So what are those? One is what they are saying, you have to get a specimen identified by a professional, then compare it with the labeled specimen, whatever you have collected or whatever the previous data that you have, compare it with the images as well as illustrations, then compare it with the descriptions, whatever the written part is there. Then by the use of an identification key, you have to follow this. And after that, you have to combine two or more of these procedures and then give. So this is about thing. Okay, then next is the taxonomic studies actually involves a series of characters which need to be. So what are those? First of all, morphological characters. That is, morphological characters means external morphology. Then special structures like you have genitalia, that means sex organs, internal morphology, embryology, karyology. So all these comes under the morphological characters. So first and foremost, what you have to do is when you are identifying a specimen, before giving any specific name, before giving any what do you say, classifying them into a different group or putting them into a different group, first of all you have to go through these characters. What you have to do, whatever the specimen that you have in front, first try to find out, study its morphological characters, external morphology as well as the internal morphology. Apart from that, it's embryology, karyology, as well as karyology in the sense nothing but with reference to the chromosomal structure, chromosomal number and all those things. Second aspect is physiological characters. That is metabolic characters, serological characters, protein and biological differences. What are the body secretions? Then third is the ecological characters, means where actually they are found. That is their habitat as well as the different host. Then what is their food habit? Then seasonal variations. In which season do they find? Whether they are parasitic or not, and whether they live in a host or not. That is host reactions. The next is ethological characters. Courtship as well as other ethological isolation. That means their behavioral patterns. Last one is your molecular genetic characters. Okay, like isozymes, nucleic acid sequences, gene expressions, as well as a regulation. So these things actually will tell you, okay, or help you to, what do you say, go for a taxonomic study of any organism. So these things you have to remember. So these are the series of characters that you have to look forward. Then only you can, what do you say, classify that particular organism, okay, name that particular organism and put it in a specific group to which actually it belongs. So that is what these are the series of characters that you need to do it. Now coming to the level of taxonomy. Now already yesterday I have discussed about, apart from this, I have discussed about artificial system. Then we have discussed about the natural system and we have discussed about phylogenetic. Now in the phylogenetic, again, I have talked about the three different types, like you have chemotaxonomy, numerical taxonomy, then alpha taxonomy, all these things. Okay. That is nothing but the same here. What I have talking about, that is a level of taxonomy, maybe alpha taxonomy, beta taxonomy, or gamma taxonomy. So alpha taxonomy, actually here you have to talk about the description of a species. Beta taxonomy actually refers to classification, whereas gamma taxonomy actually study of intraspecific variation. What is the variation lying between intra? You know the difference between inter and intra? Okay, inter means between and intra means within the species. So like that, so the level of taxonomy are of three types: alpha taxonomy, beta taxonomy, as well as gamma taxonomy. Then next is, already we have discussed about the seven what is it, types of activities about the definition of taxonomy, that is recognition, describing and naming of the taxa. Then comparison of the taxa including the studies. So this comes under beta taxonomy. Then you have classification of taxa also come under beta taxonomy. Then study of variation within the species, that is comes under gamma taxonomy. So all these things are there. Okay, then biological classification. Yesterday we were talking about, no? So it may be of any types: phenetic classification, natural classification. Then you have the cladistic or phylogenetic classification, as well as evolutionary classification. Okay, so already yesterday we have discussed, no need of all those things. Just to brush up, I'm telling you all these things. Now, phenetic classification is nothing but these are the taxa are classified on the basis of few characters or overall characters without direct reference to the phylogeny. So directly you're doing it, phyletic classification. You're not taking into consideration any evolutionary significance. Whereas natural classification, you all know that it is a natural phenomena based on the natural characters you are doing it. Okay. Then next is your claristic or phylogenetic classification. Remember, so in most of the questions that ask about either what do you mean by cladistics or what do you mean by phylogenetic classification. So phylogenetic classification or cladistic classification means one and the same, because when you are talking about the phylogenetic classification, here what you do is you try to find out their ancestors, okay, by drawing a tree. You are representing the ancestors in the form of a tree. So that tree, that representation of the ancestors in the form of a tree, you call it as nothing but a cladogram. So such type of classification, you call it as phylogenetic classification or cladistic classification. So don't get confused. Okay, they may ask you what cladogram, or they may ask you about cladistic classification, or they may ask you about phylogenetic classification. It means one and the same. Hello, are you all listening? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So cladistic classification or phylogenetic classification means one and the same. So what do you mean by cladogram? Cladogram is nothing but representation. See, like you have any organism and you'd want to try to find out its ancestors. So what you'll do, you will take the immediate ancestors, then before ancestors, like that. So to find out that, what you have to do, if you represent it in the form of a tree, I think most of you had heard about the pedigree. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Pedigree.
You might have heard about the pedigree. No, pedigree is what? Nothing but a tree. Okay. So here, what do they do? Suppose if you are having any genetic disorder, say for example, to find out any genetic disorder, any genetic disease, if a child is having, like say for example, diabetes only. So if you go to a doctor, what does the doctor say? Say in your family, anyone is having diabetes or not? So you'll say yes or no. So based on that, he said that some of the, the doctors, they say that actually it is a what do you say, inherited disorder. So they try to find out whether your parents had or your grandparents had, like that. If you try to find out and do it, so that actually to find out that what do you say, the any inherited diseases, you have to draw a tree. So that tree you call it as nothing but a pedigree. So with the help of a pedigree, you can easily find out. So here also, to find out, to classify any organism, if you know the ancestor, to find out their ancestors, if you represent it in the form of a diagram, that diagram, that figure, you call it as nothing but a cladogram or the cladistic classification. Are you understanding? So here cladistic classification is nothing but it is based on phylogenetic branching. Branching is nothing but tree is a branching. So it is called as a phylogenetic tree or phylogenetic branching. So it, what does it do? It is nothing but it is an attempt to map the sequence of phyletic branching through a determination of characters that are shaped. Okay, so the primitive characters and also that are being shaped by the present generation. So what were the primitive characters? What were the characters your parents had? Then your grandparents had. So like that, based on that, if you try to classify the organism, that such a type of classification you call cladistic classification or phylogenetic classification. Then another one is evolutionary classification. Now this is it is not evolutionary, it is evolutionary. So it is based on evolutionary relationship of the organism, but not just their phylogeny. Okay, only the evolution. So this classification provides foundation for all comparative studies. Okay, this is about the different types of the classification. Now coming to the binomial nomenclature. Yesterday already I have discussed when I talked about the Carl's lineage and all those things, other scientists. So the naming of the organism, especially now, if you say what do you say, classify any organism. If I tell you to classify the organism and write the what is it, the classification. So what will you do first? We say phylum. Okay. Then we say family. If it is a family is there, then what we'll do? We'll talk about the class. Okay, if above the class, if you have a super class, you say super class. Then you say class or family also. You can say super family, family, subfamily. Okay, then you will come to class. That is super class. Then you have a class. Then you have a subclass. Then after class, you have an order. Okay, super order, order, and suborder. So like that. After order, you say genus. After genus, you say species. So that is how actually we call it as none. So according to the Carroll's lineage, any organism is being given two names. One is called as the what is that, a generic name, and the other one you call it as a specific name. So genus and species. So Carroll's Linnea's binomial nomenclature actually has helped the scientists to not only to classify the animals, but also to name the animals. So Carroll's Linnea's, what he did is he published, okay, the first comprehensive and consistent classification system for both the plants and animals. So he has actually studied both the plants as well as the animals. Now, all the plants, whatever he has described, he has put them, all the classified, all those plants, okay, and put them in a book which he called it a species plantaria. Okay, about how many plants? 7,300 species of plants actually he has identified. And all those species, whatever he has identified, he has actually put it in the form of a book. That book is called as Species Plantarium. Likewise, also he has given classification of the animals also, and he, whatever the animals that he has classified, he has published in a book that is called as Systema Naturae in the year 1758. Okay, so it also included all those things. So in this, what he has done is he has actually classified both the plants as well as the animals. Okay, and he has used this two. Binomial means two. So two-word system, it is called as two-word naming system, which is called as binomial nomenclature. So binomial nomenclature. So what are the rules that he had followed and how we need to follow in what is the naming of the particular organism, naming of the particular the animal. So what are the various rules of the binomial nomenclature? Now, first rule is what he said is one binomial name for each species. Okay. Then capitalize. Only one name you have to give. So genus, you have to write it in the capital. Okay. And species, you have to write it in the small letter. Like say, for example, now Homo and sapiens. You all know actually the scientific name for the human beings is what? Homo sapiens. Homo is what? Genus. And species is what? Sapiens. Species sapiens. Okay. So, but we all come under the same species. So for us, there is no what is a different species in our case. But if you talk about different animals, say for example, suppose if you take the what is the paramecium, say for example, or not paramecium, any organism you can take. For example, plasmodium. Now in plasmodium, you have different species. Generic name is plasmodium, but species name is what? Different. Basically, they say 4 different species of plasmodium actually are found. What are those? One is Plasmodium vivax, we say Plasmodium falciparum, then Plasmodium ovale, Plasmodium malariae. So based on the different characteristic features, they have given specific names. So Plasmodium is the common generic name, no doubt, genus name, but the species are different. So likewise, what he said is according to binomial nomenclature, every animal or every organism should be given 2 names. One is called as the generic name and the other one is called as a species name. So generic name should be written in capital letter, capitalized genus they are saying. Okay. So, and whereas the species name actually should be written lowercase species, means it should be written in small letters. Okay. So constructed according to the rules of Latin or the Greek grammar. So discoverer of species getting the names, okay, and it is typed in italics and underlined wherever written. So when you see, so these are some of the rules of the binomial nomenclature. So what are those? One, actually binomial name should be given for each species. So you can say every organism should be given 2 names. One is the generic name and the other one is a specific name. Generic name should be written in capital letter. Specific name should be written in small letters, and it should be written in italics, or sometimes it also should be underlined whenever required or whenever written. So this is about the rules. Okay. So this is about the binomial nomenclature, which was given by the Carroll's Linnea's. Okay. Now, what is a taxonomical linear hierarchy? What he has given, how he has. So he said that actually, when you're going for following the linear system of classification, so what he did is he has actually consists of a hierarchy of taxonomic ranks, and they are all called as a taxa. So any given taxon, singular, may contain several lower taxa. Okay. So first he has given, so any given taxon, say for example, within the living world as a whole, the biggest taxonomic rank he has given is called as a kingdom. After kingdom, he has actually the next rank he has given is the phylum or the division. After the division, what he has given each phylum or the division, next taxon he has given as the class. Okay. Then after the class, he said that this class is divided into different orders. And he said each order actually again is divided into a number of families. And each family again has got a number of genera. And each genus actually has got a species. So the species actually is the basic or the fundamental unit of the classification. So, and also it is the lowest rank. So what is the taxonomic linear hierarchy is, now according to the, what do you say, the Carroll's linears. Now, whenever you are classifying the organism, what you have to do is you have to rank them. Okay, you have to grade them based on their ranking. Okay, that you should maintain a hierarchy. So what he's saying is the biggest rank or the highest rank that should be given is nothing but called as the kingdom. It is the kingdom. So each, what do you say, the rank, he call it a specific name. So the biggest taxonomic rank is the kingdom, whereas the lowest taxonomic rank is what? The species. So highest is the kingdom. So then he said is this kingdom is divided into what? It is divided into a number of the phylum. Okay, so the next higher rank within a kingdom is the nothing but the phylum, or you can also call it as a division. And again, this phylum is what? It is divided, each phylum again or division is divided into a number of classes. Yes or no? Then again, these classes again have what? A number of orders. And each order again has a number of families. And each family is again divided into a genera. Number of genera they have. And each genus is having a species. Okay, so that is why highest. So this is what is called as nothing but taxonomic linear hierarchy, or the hierarchy in the lineage classification. So whenever a question is asked, what do you mean by taxonomic linear hierarchy, means you have to talk about all these things. So from examination point of view, these are all important. So that is the reason why I'm specifying all this. Okay, now we will see how he has classified. So suppose if you want to see here, what is the, this is called as the hierarchy. Okay, so what taxonomic linear hierarchy. See here, first the highest taxonomy is nothing but the kingdom, or you can also call it as the what do you say, the phylum. Then next you have subphylum. Now then next is the class. Next you have subclass. After subclass, you have got the cohort. Cohort, some of the scientists they use, some of the scientists they don't use. Okay. Then you have got the super order, then order, then you have suborder, then infraorder. Then infraorder means some of the scientists again they follow it. It depends. Okay. Upon how best in detail you can go about. Okay. The next is what? Super family. Then you have family. Then you have subfamily. Then you have tribe. Then you have genus. Then you have subgenus. Then species. Then you have subspecies. Okay. So this is how, this is what is called as nothing but the taxonomical hierarchy, which was given by Carroll's linears. So this is an example of a hierarchical system for the group of animals that includes the humans. Now see here how they have classified. So based on this, so we come under, suppose if you want to classify human beings. So how we are going to classify? The first highest rank is what? Nothing but the phylum or the kingdom. So phylum is what? We belong to chordata, that is vertebrata. So phylum chordata or vertebrata. Sorry, chordata. Then subphylum is the vertebrata. Okay. Subphylum. Phylum is chordata. Subphylum is the vertebrata. Then next is what? You have class Mammalia. After that, order primates. Then you have family is Hominidae. Genus is Homo. Species is Homo sapiens. So this is what you have to do it. So accordingly, based on this hierarchy, we can classify the organisms organisms like this. So this is the example. Any example you may take. You may take from the invertebrates, you may take from the vertebrates, any example belonging to any phyla, you can classify based on this, what do you say, the hierarchy. So this is called as the taxonomic hierarchy that is given actually by Carroll's linears. Is it okay? Yes? Hello?
Okay,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am. Clear,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Is it clear? Okay.
Okay.
Now, next is what is species? Now, species is very, very important. We all know actually it is the lowest rank in a taxonomy. So it is actually the lowest taxonomic rank representing the organisms that are very closely related to one another. So if you take a kingdom, kingdom includes so many, what do you say, the kingdom means phyla, so many phyla are there, but they are not closely related. So after that phyla or the kingdom, we say it is divided into a number of, what do you say, the families. Families again divided into number of classes. So they are not closely related. But when you come to the last one, that is the lowest rank, we say species. So here we are including the species put together. That is why actually the species are very, very closely related, whereas the families are not closely related. So that is what says. So it is the lowest taxonomic rank which represents organisms that are very much closely related to one another. So we can define a species as a group of closely related, structurally as well as functionally similar organisms, which can breed among themselves, producing the female offsprings and are also reproductively isolated from such other groups. So that is what. So species is considered to be made up of different populations from different geographical areas. So how can we define species? Now, different ways are there: biological species concept, typological species concept, phylogenetic or cladistic species concept, and ecological species concept. So you can define species. So we can say the species is nothing but a lowest taxonomic rank representing the organisms which are very, very closely related to with each other. They are not only closely related, but they are structurally as well as functionally similar, and then they can breed among themselves, producing the fertile offsprings. Okay. So then next is, according to biological species concept, what do you mean by species? Species is what? A group of organisms capable of interbreeding and producing the fertile offsprings. Then typological species concept, how does it define species? It is a species is a group of organisms conforming to a common morphological plan. Okay, based on the morphological plan. Okay. Next, phylogenetic means what? Species concept, it is a set of organisms between two branch points or between one branch point and an extinction happening or a modern population. So it is nothing but it is a set of organisms between two branch points or between one branch point. Because here we are talking about the phylogenetic tree. So that is the reason why, according to this, the species is defined as a set of organisms between two branch points or between one branch point and an extinction happening or a modern population. Now, according to ecological, a species is a set of organisms exploiting to a single niche. Single niche is what? Nothing but a habitat, a place where actually the organisms live. So that is what we call it as a niche. So according to ecological species, ecological concept, species is a set of organisms exploiting, means adapted to a single particular niche. So this is how they have defined species based on different concepts. Now, what do you mean by species? Nothing but process of the origin of a species, new species, you call it as a speciation, or production of the species, you can say, is called as a speciation. Okay. Now, sibling species. So any two or more related species that are morphologically identical, what do but are incapable of producing female hybrids. So sibling species can only be identified by their genetic, biochemical, behavioral, or ecological. So, okay. So we need not go into the details of this, but just we'll listen, see what is speciation. It is nothing but process of the origin of new species. So how this speciation occurs, we'll see now. Now, actually, basically, there are two different types of species. One is called as a sympatric species and the other one is called allopatric species. Now, coming to the sympatric species means they occupy the same or overlapping geographical areas without interbreeding. They do not undergo the interbreeding, but they occupy the same or geographical areas. That is what. And this sympatric species actually are developed as a result of the reproductive isolation of population that share the same geographic range. So the organisms living in the same geographic range, what do? Is they undergo the reproductive isolation and then they develop the species. So that is what we call sympatric speciation. Sympatric speciation is nothing but development of new species as a result of reproductive isolation of population that share the same geographic range. Now, coming to allopatric, it occurs in a separate, non-overlapping geographical areas. It's totally new. Okay, separate geographical areas, and it is they are unable to interbreed because of the geographic separation. So here they do not unable. So that is the reason why what do? Is so development of new species as a result of geographic separation of population. Okay, so allopatric species are developed because of the geographic separation, whereas sympatric species are developed because of the reproductive isolation. Because of the reproductive isolation. So this is what you mean by sympatric species as well as the allopatric species. See here, they have given the examples over here like this. Okay, so how do they do it? Now, reproductive isolation mechanisms are also there. So this is not important from the biological classification of point of view. So just neglect. So when I'm sharing the PPTs, okay. Now, what is important, I'll talk about that only. Now this is again important. Types in zoology. Now, what do you mean by types in zoology? Most of the, questions they ask, what do you mean by types in zoology? Actually, in zoological nomenclature, the type of a species or a subspecies is nothing but a specimen. Okay, it is a specimen or the type of a genus. Okay, it is a species, and the type of a suprageneric taxon is a genus. So you can say what are all those things. So here in zoological nomenclature, type of species is what? Subspecies. Subspecies, you can say type of a species is subspecies. It is a specimen. Then, or a series of specimens. Then type of genus is what? Subgenus, which is again a species. And type of a suprageneric taxon is nothing but a family. So it is a genus. So the names higher than the superfamily ranks do not have the types. So a name bearing type provides the objective standard of reference. So how actually, what are the various zoological types? When you are actually trying to give a nomenclature to the species, to the genus, how you are going to find out that. So type species is what they're saying is each genus must have a designated type species. Each genus should have a designated type species. Like the description of a genus is usually based on its type species, modified and expanded. So here what they're saying, the generic name is associated with the name bearing type. So type species, type genus. So type genus is that genus from which the name of a family or the subfamily is formed. So here, as with type species, the type genus is also not necessarily the most representative. So you can say, instead of that, what you can learn here is types in zoology is different kinds of types is holotype, allotype, paratype, syntype, as well as lactotype. Now, what do you mean? Based on that. So when you talk about, before you go for holotype, allotype, and all those things, basically there are two types in zoology. What are those? One is called as the primary type and the other one is called as a secondary type. Now, primary type is nothing but a specimen upon which the description of a new species group name is based. Okay, it is nothing but a specimen upon which the description of a new species group name is based. Whereas secondary type is what? It is a supplementary type. Here, the specimen used by an author to supplement, to correct knowledge of a previously defined species, including plestotype, neotype, and all those things. So, now, what are the types in zoology? In zoological nomenclature, you neglect all those 6 types, species, type, genus. You say there are 2 types of what do you say? Types in zoology. Those are, one is primary type and the other one is secondary type. Primary type is what? It is nothing but a specimen upon which the description of a new species will depend. Whereas secondary type actually is a supplementary type. It is a specimen which is used by an author to supplement or to correct the knowledge of a previously defined species. Now, how many types are there under primary type and how many types are there under secondary type? We'll see now. Is it okay? Hello? Hello?
Okay, ma'am. Clear, ma'am.
Okay.
Clear, ma'am.
Now here, see, primary type are different types now here. Now, primary type are holotype, allotype, paratype, syntype, and lectotype. Now, holotype is what? The single type specimen that is a representative of a named species group taxon. Usually, it is designated as such, or a single specimen designated or indicated as the type by the original author. So, holotype is nothing but a single type specimen, which is the sole representative of the species group taxon. Whereas holo means single, you can say. Okay, same. Now, allotype is the type specimen of the opposite sex of the holotype. So you can say allotype is what? It is the opposite sex of the holotype. Then paratype is what? All the specimens other than the holotype. All specimens other than the holotype upon which the species group name is based. You call it as a paratype. Then syntype is what? Any specimen upon which the author based the description of a new species group name without designating a holotype. You call it as a syntype. Then lectotype is what? The after designated type specimen of a species that was originally based on more than one specimen. So this is about the different primary types. Now coming to the secondary type. The secondary type actually you all know it is given, designed, the specimen actually has been used by an author. So for a redescription. So here they have, there are two types. They are plesiotype and next is a new type. Plesiotype is what? It is a supplementary description or the illustration which is published subsequent to the original description. Whereas neotype is what? The designated type specimen of a species whose type has been shown to be the lost or destroyed. So this is about the different types. So what you can say is, leave off all those things. Actually, you say in zoological nomenclature, the different types are of two types. What are those? One is called as the primary type and the other one is called as the secondary type. Just now I have shown you. Now, primary type is, you just say it is a specimen upon which the description of a new species or the group name is based. Secondary type is specimen which is used by an author to supplement or to correct the knowledge of already the previous defined species is there. Then next, what you do is you talk about the different types. Primary types are of 5 types and secondary types are of 2 types. Primary type is what? Holotype, allotype, paratype, syntype, and lectotype. There are secondary type is plesiotype and neotype. So this, if you talk with till here, it is more than enough. Okay. So these are all, what do you say, the, what is that? Examination point of view, these are very, very important. So that is the reason why I have told you. Okay. Now taxonomy keys or dichotomy keys are not required. So this is, okay. Okay. So the all these things. Okay. So these things. So okay. So in today's class, what you remember is, now yesterday I have discussed about the biological classification. Till there, you know what is classification, what is systematics, what is taxonomy, and what is what do you say, the taxonomy, systematics, as well as the classification. So we have discussed in detail about the classification, biological classification, and all those things. Now today, okay, we have discussed about the key concepts related to the, again, the same thing. So what is taxonomy? Now, what are the points that you need to remember when you are trying to classify or name that particular organism? And what is the taxonomical hierarchy? So two concepts are very, very important from today's lecture. One is taxonomical hierarchy, binomial nomenclature that was given by Carol's Linnaeus. What is binomial nomenclature? What are the rules? Second is taxonomical hierarchy. That is how the Carol Linnaeus actually has classified the organisms, okay, based on different taxa. So the highest taxon he has called it as nothing but your phylum or the kingdom. Then the lowest taxon he has given it as the species. So based on that, how he has classified the organism. So what are the different taxon? How you can classify? So that is very, very important. Very important here. This one, taxonomical linear hierarchy. Okay, then how you have to classify, that is kingdom or the phylum, subphylum, and all those things. You can give an example. Any example you can take, not only the human beings, you can take any example, any invertebrate example, any vertebrate example, and you can classify the organism. So taxonomical hierarchy is very, very important. Binomial nomenclature, taxonomical hierarchy, and what is a species? Okay, what are the different types of species? And what are the two different species, sympatric species as well as the allopathic species, and how actually they originate. Then apart from that, just now I have talked about the different zoology types. In zoology nomenclature, what are the different zoology types? So two different types, primary type as well as the secondary type. In the primary type, the 5 different types you have to mention, and in the secondary type, you have to mention about those 2 types. Okay, so that is the reason why I have taken this particular, what do you say, the PPT to share, because this is also from examination point of view, it is very, very important. Yes, students, any doubt you have regarding this?
No,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay. So is it clear now about the classification? We will go
Yes,
to the
ma'am.
next. We'll go to the next what do you say, the chapter. If you have
Okay,
any
ma'am.
doubts, you can ask. So actually, in the block 1, you have what the biological classification is there, biosystematics, taxonomy. I have covered almost the whole thing. So don't get confused. Taxonomy, what is taxonomy? So taxonomy, I have told you what it is. Okay. Then biosystematics means arranging. So taxonomy, biosystematics, and all those things, they mean one and the same. They are all interrelated. Okay. So they will ask only such type of questions. If they ask such type of questions, you need to answer. So when I share the notes, I will give you in detail all those things. Is it okay?
Ma'am, if
Yes?
it is possible today, please send me the notes, ma'am.
No, ma, I am going to send to only Kishore sir. Kishore sir instructed us to send it to him so that through his, what do you
Why?
say,
Because
mail or,
already 3 classes over now, ma'am. It's
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm
one
telling you,
by.
no.
Okay,
Hmm.
ma'am. It is
Hmm?
easy every day. If you send the
Yeah,
class,
yeah.
it is easy for me. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
tomorrow. Yeah,
Okay.
tomorrow I'll ask Kishore sir, and then this week
Okay.
only I will need to
Okay, ma'am. Thank
send
you.
it.
Thank
Okay. So any doubt regarding the classification? Yes.
you. It's
Yes or
clear,
no?
ma'am.
Okay. Now we will go to ecology. That fourth block I will take first. Okay. Because first block everything is completed. If you have any doubt, you can ask. In biological classification, and then you have this biosystematics, taxonomical hierarchy. They all are interrelated. Everything. Okay. Then in the second block, I have taken only about the coelom, and we have talked about the the larvae, echinoderm larvae. Okay. The other things are remaining. So that is a comparative study. So that is the reason why I put it on hold. That I will give you how to, because in invertebrates as well as in the vertebrates, you have to talk about in detail how it is. Okay. So next class, I will try to take it. Now today, I thought we will go to the last block, that is nothing but which is concerned with about ecology. Is it okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes? Okay. Now we will go to the fourth block. I'll just try to share. Okay. No. Hello, students. Hello.
Yes,
Yes,
madam.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now we will now discuss about the ecology. So what is ecology? What do you mean by ecosystem and all those things? Okay. Now, before we go to that, what is ecology? You all already you have been learning, I think this in from your degree already you have learned all these things. So again, here also you have in the fourth, I think fourth block or fifth block, you have ecology and animal diversity. Then you have the ecosystems as well as animal diversity and different national parks, hotspots, and the different, what do you say, the conservation strategies and all those things. Okay. Now, coming to ecology, now you all know actually ecology is derived from a Greek word, eikos, which means to house, and logos means to study. So therefore, it is nothing but the ecology is the study of the living organisms or the living space. So it includes both the, what do you say, the living organisms as well as the non-living organisms. So whole, what do you say, the living space. Ecology is nothing but the study of the living space. So in more scientific way, we can say it is nothing but the study of organisms, environment, and also the how the organisms actually are interact with each other and also with their environment. So it involves both biotic as well as the abiotic components. So that is what ecology says. So ecology basically is derived from a Greek word eikos, which means house. Okay, whereas logos means to study. So ecology is nothing but the study of the living organisms, its environment, and also the behavior. That is the organisms' behavior in the environment. So that is the reason why it involves. So when you're talking about environment, it involves both the biotic as well as the abiotic component. So biotic component are nothing but the living organisms, and abiotic component are nothing but the non-living organisms. Okay. Now see here. So what are the various levels of ecological organization? So when we are actually living in this space, that is, whole universe is nothing but an ecology. The whole universe, example, the whole universe, the whole world itself is a ecology. So here we are actually surviving because of the abiotic component. So we are all biotic, that is living organism, that is plants, animals, human beings, and all those things. And the abiotic components are nothing but your temperature, sunlight, air, pressure, whatever it is. So without the interaction between the biotic and the abiotic component, the earth will not, we cannot survive. So that is why both the biotic as well as the abiotic components are very, very important for the sustenance of the environment, or for the sustenance of this earth, or for the sustenance of this ecological habitat. So what are the different levels of ecological organization? So we will see, what do you mean by individual, what do you mean by population, what do you mean by community, what is an ecosystem, and what is a biome. So when you're talking about this is with reference to the what you say, the biotic components. You all know abiotic components are non-living, that is light, temperature, air, pressure, rainfall, everything. Now when you're talking about the biotic component, now what are biotic component means? Organisms, plants, animals, as well as the human beings. So how do you define these what do you say, the organisms at different levels? What do you mean by an individual? What do you mean by population? What do you mean by community? What do you mean by ecosystem? And what is a biome? Okay, so this is what, see here. Now here, individual. See, individual actually. So an individual constitutes what? A population. Population will form a community. Community, all the communities put together, they form an ecosystem. And the ecosystem, all the ecosystems are grouped together and they form a biome. And the biome actually will form a nothing but the biosphere. So these are the different levels of ecological organization. So individual, see, I'm a single individual. So a group of what do you say, human beings living all put together, we call it as nothing but a population. Population, next hierarchy is what? Community. So population will make the community. Community will make up all communities put together. We call it as ecosystem. And all ecosystems actually put together, we call it as a biome. And biome, that's lastly, it constitutes that biosphere. Okay. So at individual, so at ecological level, according to the this what do you say, the ecological concept, how do you define these at different levels? So what is individual? Individual is nothing but a basic unit of study in ecology. It is a basic unit of study in ecology. Population is what? A group of individuals. Okay, a group of individuals belonging to the same species, living at a particular place, at a particular habitat, and functioning as a unit. Then we call it as a population. Then community, a group of population, you can say. A group of population, or you can say organization, resulting from interdependence and interactions among the population. The ecosystem is what? Nothing but parts of nature where the living organisms interact among themselves and also with the physical environment, like what do you say, abiotic environment. So then we call it as ecosystem. Then biome is what? It is a large unit. Okay, it is a large unit which is characterized by a major vegetation type and also the associated fauna, which is found in a particular zone. Okay, then biosphere is the entire inhabited part of the whole world, we can say. That is what we call it as nothing but the biosphere. So these are the different levels of ecological organization. So first is an individual, population, community, ecosystem, biome, as well as the biosphere. Okay. So now coming to what are the types of ecosystem. Now we have seen what is ecosystem. Ecosystem is nothing but the interaction, okay, of the various, what do you say, the communities, you can say, or the population with the abiotic components, or okay, association with the abiotic component. So broadly speaking, these ecosystems have been classified into two types. They are terrestrial ecosystem and aquatic ecosystem. Now terrestrial ecosystems actually are nothing but these are the ecosystems which are found only on the land. Then we call it as the terrestrial ecosystem. Now examples like rainforest ecosystem, deciduous forest, grassland ecosystem, deciduous forest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem. Okay, or you can say grassland ecosystem, forest ecosystem. Okay, so broadly they are divided into two types, that is terrestrial, totally on land. They are present only on ecosystem. So they are examples. Just now I have told you they are terrestrial ecosystem. Sorry, rainforest ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, as well as the deciduous forest ecosystem. Now, coming to aquatic ecosystem. Now, these are basically confined only to the water. So, these are the ecosystems actually which live in the water bodies like rivers, oceans, lakes, wetlands, ponds, or anything. So, such type of ecosystem we call it as a aquatic ecosystem. So, how many types of ecosystems you have? Two types, terrestrial as well as the aquatic. Now, so when you're talking about these things, now what actually you mean by biodiversity? Biodiversity is very, very important. Okay, so biodiversity is what? It is nothing but term where you have the variety of life, enormous variety of life in the form of plants, in the form of animals, in the form of human beings, which are present on the earth. So it is very, very useful. Yes or no? So that means both the biotic as well as the abiotic components are very, very essential. Okay, in a biosphere. So both are important. See, biotic components actually, I mean, the living beings require the abiotic component and the abiotic. So that is how the cycle goes on. So biodiversity is what? It refers to nothing but it describes the entire or the variety of life forms which are present on this earth. So it is actually refers to all the species in one region or the ecosystem. So it refers to every living thing or every living thing, including plants, animals, bacteria, as well as the humans. So that is how we define biodiversity. So biodiversity refers to every living thing, whether it may be a plant, whether it may be an animal, whether it may be a bacteria, virus, lichen, or humans, or whatever it is. So that is what is called as biodiversity. So conservation of biodiversity is very, very important. Okay. Now we'll see. So what is the importance of biodiversity? So it is very, very important. So economically, it is very, very important. Ecologically, it is very, very important. It can be used for recreation purposes, for cultural activities, and also for scientific study. It is also very, very important. So economically, how it is important, we'll see now. So they say that actually economically, biodiversity provides humans with raw materials for consumption as well as production. Like many livelihoods, such as those of farmers, fishers, and timber workers, they are dependent on biodiversities. Okay, the biodiversity. Okay, like timber workers, what do they do? Economically, they'll cut the forest and then they'll try to collect the wood and all those things. Fishermen, they will collect the fishes and then they will sell it. Like those farmers, what do? They have to actually depend on the plant and they grow the plants and all those things. So that is also economically, biodiversity provides humans with the raw materials. And these raw materials actually not only they are produced, but also for the consumption purpose, we require it. So that is why to survive, we require all these things. These are nothing but a means of getting money, and at the same time also providing the raw materials in the form of food for the humans to survive. So economically, the biodiversity plays a very, very significant role. Now ecologically, how it is helpful. Now biodiversity provides functioning ecosystems that supply oxygen, clean air and water, then pollination of the plants, pest control, wastewater treatment, and many ecosystem services. So ecologically also. So it provides functioning because see, animals require plants, yes or no? So even we require the plants because plants provide us, what do they do? Give us, they take in the carbon dioxide. Plants take in the carbon dioxide that we exhale, and then in return, it will produce the oxygen. So that oxygen is essential. So that is why we depend on the plants. Okay, not only on the oxygen, but also for on the food. So likewise, even the different types of insects, pollination of the plants also occurs through the insects. So likewise, so clean air and water. Water is essential, air is essential, the oxygen, the different gases that are present in the universe, those are also very, very essential. So ecologically also, biodiversity actually is very, very important. So we need to conserve it. Next is what? Recreation. Now, many recreational pursuits actually rely on our unique biodiversity. Now, such as bird watching, hiking, camping, and fishing. So these are also, again, our tourism industry actually also depends on biodiversity. So when we have a good collection of these animals, when we have a good collection of these plants and all those things, then we can actually, convert them into good recreation spots, so that we can not only, the tourism industry, this actually fetches not only the money, and at the same time, it will try to, economically also, it will try to, will be helpful, okay, for the tourism department. So, at one aspect, it actually serves as a purpose of recreation for the humans, and at the same time, the tourism department also can economically can be rich. So that is why the biodiversity also helpful in one way for many recreation pursuits. Next is what cultural. Now, also it provides expression of identity through spirituality as well as through aesthetic appreciation. Indigenous population and tribes have strong connections and obligations to biodiversity arising from spiritual beliefs about animals and plants. Now this is actually with reference to traditional aspects. Now, you all know actually the tribal people and all those things. So they rely on the biodiversity. They talk about the traditional plants and all those things, and also traditional animals, where they try to keep it at home, and then perform the puja and all those things. Likewise, even the plants. So cultural aspect, cultural point of view also, biodiversity plays a very, very significant role. And lastly, scientific study, scientific purpose. So biodiversity represents a wealth of systematic ecological data that help us to understand the natural world as well as its origin. So through the scientific study also, we can know, not only, through scientific study, we can know the different, the plants, the different animals actually that are inhabiting the world, or that are inhabiting this particular earth. So the biodiversity actually has got a lot of importance. It has got a lot of significance. Economically, it is helpful. Ecologically, it is helpful. Recreational purpose, it is helpful. Cultural purpose, it is helpful. And also scientific purpose also, it is helpful. So that is why biodiversity plays a very, very significant role. Okay. Now, what are the threats to biodiversity? Now, we all know actually humans are so greedy. So what, for our selfishness and for our greediness, what we are trying to do, we are trying to pollute the whole earth. Okay. So we are not actually, okay, through scientific, involvement, and through scientific study and all those things, at one side, we have advanced a lot scientifically, but at the same time, what we are trying to do, we are trying to actually giving a threat to the biodiversity. Means most of the animals, most of the plants we are destroying, and we are cutting the forest and all those things. So in that case, what we are trying to do, we are trying to actually, we are trying to lessen the biodiversity that is existing on this earth in the form of plants, in the form of animals. So the rich biodiversity which was once upon a time was there, so that we are trying to cut it down for our selfishness, for our greediness, for our want. So that actually has to be taken care of. So what are the various threats to biodiversity? So various reasons are there, various causes are there, for the threats to biodiversity. Just I have told you, human activities, loss of habitat, and also we are going for deforestation, and we're cutting down the forest, and also we are going for hunting, and we are trying to actually hunt the wild animals, okay, for the purpose of taking skin from it, and for many other purposes. So wildlife trade. And also, so in that case, what we are trying to do, the climate, it resulted in the climate change. So these are various reasons actually that led, or that are the reasons, okay, that are the causes which basically serve as threats to biodiversity. One is what, human activities and the loss of habitat. Already just I have told you, human activities are causing a loss of biological diversity among the animals, and they are saying about 50 to 100 times the average rate of species actually have been lost because of the human activities. And next is what, desertification and deforestation. So there are many causes of biodiversity loss, both progresses. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to actually cut off the forest. So because of that, also we are trying to lose many of the trees which are very, very valuable plants as well as valuable animal species. We are because see, now, when once you are going for deforestation, you are not only cutting down the forest, but at the same time, the wild animals which are present in the forest also, they get vanished because they live in the forest. So if the forests are not occurring, then definitely the wild animals also will go extinct. So that is why desertification and deforestation also is another threat to biodiversity. Then wildlife trade. So some of the animals and also the body parts of some animals actually are traded to different countries for economical benefit. So that is the reason why we are going for hunting. We are trying to take kill them, and then we are trying to take their body parts as well as the skin, and to different countries. Actually, we are trading them for the economic benefit. So that is the reason why even the wildlife animals also are cutting down. I mean, their number is being lessened. Then climate change. So as the climate wants, species also will migrate towards a higher. So because of these things, when the climate is changing, definitely whatever the animals, whatever the the birds in the form of species that are there. I mean, the birds can migrate now from one place to another place. So they can easily migrate towards the higher altitudes, and then they try to actually go to the safer places. So these are the various, what do you say, the reasons or the causes which actually are nothing but the threats to biodiversity. So these should be taken care of. Okay. So these are the various threats to biodiversity. Okay. Next is the result of biodiversity explosion. So exploitation, what you have to do it. Okay. Yes. Students, are you listening? Hello?
Listening, ma'am.
Listening,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Is it okay?
Okay, ma'am. Clear, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Now, so the result of biodiversity exploitation. So what happens is, due to over exploitation of this biodiversity, different species of the plants and animals, they're facing different threats, levels of threats. So for this reason, the government has come up, and what they have done, not only at the country level, but the whole world at the international level, they have formed one international, what do you say, the corporation that we call it as nothing but IUCN, that is International Union for Conservation of Nature. So this was actually set up, and this particular, what do you say, the organization which was generated uh, only to, what do you say, safeguard the biodiversity. So this IUCN is nothing but International Union for Conservation of Nature. It has generated a list which is called as nothing but the IUCN Red List. So in the IUCN Red List, what they have done is they have included all the animals, different plant species as well as the different animal species that are facing lot of threat at present and which are needed to be conserved. Okay, so that they can be saved from extinction. So that is why, so at the international level, not only at the national level, but also at the international level, actually, this has been formulated, IUCN has been formulated, this organization, and this organization throughout the world. Okay, each country, what they have done is, they have gone and they try to find out what are the various animal species, what are the various plant species which are very, very important and which are actually, what do you say, facing lot of difficulties. Difficulties. That means difficulties in the sense to safeguard them, how to conserve them. Because if they are less in number, if they get lessened, definitely, if the number is lessened, they also will be on the verge of extinction. So one by one, what happens? Their population will get decreased and totally they will be lost. So that is why whatever the percentage of the plants and the percentage of animals that are existing now still, if we conserve it, okay, by taking proper measures, then we can see that they will not get totally extinct. So that is why this International Union for Conservation of Nature throughout the world actually has generated a list which we call it as IUCN Red List. In this, they have included all the names of different plants and the species which are facing the threats. So they can be saved from extinction. So this is what. So it was founded, International Union for Conservation of Nature, which we call it as IUCN. It was founded by Julian Huxley on 5th October 1948. So in the year after, just after our independence itself, it was founded in 1948. So it is an international organization which works in the field of conservation of nature and also the use of substantial natural resources. So it is involved in the data gathering and analysis, research, field projects, advocacy, as well as education. And its main headquarters actually lies in Switzerland. So this is about the IUCN. So it is a very important organization. So they have actually classified, they have identified, and they have given a red list, and they have categorized what are the animals that come under this, what do you mean by extinct, what do you mean by threatened, and what do you mean by least concern. So first they have tried to actually categorize this, and under this, what are the different animals that come under this, they have given. So what do you mean, what are the different categories that come under the red list? Now they have given here, one is extinct. Second one is what? Threatened. And the third one is what? Least concern. Now, extinct means they are on the verge of extinction, means one or two species are there and they will totally extinct. Threatened means they're still there, but they will be on the verge of extinction. Then the third one is they are least concern, means very less population will be there. Okay. So here we'll see now, what do you mean by extinct? Extinct means here no reasonable doubt that the last individual has died. So they become totally extinct. So extinct in the wild, they are critically endangered. So extinct means no reasonable doubt that the last individual has died. So totally there is no species or no organism as such actually is being present. So extinct means totally died. Not a single individual is present. Now coming to the threatened, in the threatened category, you have 5 like EW, CR, EN, VU, and NT. Now extinct in the wild. EW means extinct in the wild. So that is known only to survive in captivity, cultivation, or well outside its natural range. Okay, so in the outside its natural range, so they are not able to survive in the natural habitat because they have that threat. So if you keep it outside the natural range, okay, so they will become so extinct in the wild. Then what critically endangered? So they are facing extremely higher risk of extinction in the wild. The next is what endangered. EN stands for endangered. It is facing a very high risk of extinction in the wild. Then vulnerable means facing a high risk of extinction in the wild. Again, same way. Then near threatened is they are close to qualifying or likely to qualify for a threatened category in the near future. But still they are there, but they are also in the near future, they will also become, they also will be facing higher risk of extinction. So these are all what threatened. So extinct means totally not a single individual of that particular species belongs. Totally they have gone. Threatened means they are surviving, but beyond the natural habitat. So they are classified into 5 different categories. EW, CR, that is EW is extinct in the wild, CR is critically endangered, and then you have vulnerable and near threatened. And last one is least concern. Least concern is what? The population is stable enough that is unlikely to face extinction in the near future. Okay. And data deficient means not, one more is there, it is not enough information or abundance or okay. So that is LC is the least concern. So this is actually given by IUCN organization. So what they have done is they have categorized these animals in the different categories they have given, and based on this, which animal will come under the extinct, which animals are threatened animals, which animals are extinct animals, and which animals actually are the least concern. So based on this, they have categorized. So this is the red list categories which is given by IUCN. Okay. Now next is what? Biodiversity conservation. So what do you mean by biodiversity? So just now we have seen what is biodiversity, why biodiversity is important, and why we need to conserve the biodiversity, because we are one by one, what we are trying to do for our own benefit, for our own selfishness, we are trying to exploit the biodiversity. That means we are trying to cut down the forest. When we are cutting down the forest and all those things, we are losing the plants. Not only we are losing the plants, and also we are losing the wild animals. So all the wild animals, not only the wild animals, all the plants actually that are present in this universe need to be present. Then only actually the biosphere, the whole ecological system will work. If any one of the organism actually is not there, then the system will not work, because it is an interaction. Okay, what do you mean by biosphere? It is nothing but an interaction between the earth, okay, as well as the organisms that are present in this on this earth. So that is why it needs to be conserved. So conservation is nothing but the protection and the management of biodiversity to obtain the resources. So sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations. So biodiversity conservation has 3 main objectives. What are those? One is to preserve the diversity of species, to sustain the utilization of species and ecosystem, to maintain the life supporting systems and essential ecological processes. So biodiversity conservation is based on these 3 objectives. We have to preserve the diversity, not only preserve, but also sustain the utilization of species, and also to maintain the life supporting systems and essential ecological processes that are needed to conserve this biodiversity. So this is about the biodiversity conservation. Now, methods. What are the conservation methods that are basically required? So broadly speaking, there are 2 methods of conservation. They are in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. So what do you mean by in situ and what do you mean by ex situ? Now, in situ is their protected area. Ex situ means outside the natural habitat. In situ means within the natural habitat. So here biodiversity conservation actually is classified into 2 types, in situ as well as ex situ. Now, under in situ, you have a protected area network where they are being protected, like national parks, wildlife sanctuaries. Then also biosphere reserves. Biosphere reserves, you have two types, terrestrial as well as marine. Then you have sacred groves, sacred lakes. Whereas XC2 means botanical gardens. Okay, then you have zoological parks. Botanical gardens means arboreta, zoological gardens like aquarium and all those things. Apart from that, you also can conserve them in the seed banks in the form of seeds, then field gene banks, then cryopreservation and all those things. Apart from that, sacred plants as well as the home gardens. So these are the two methods of the conservation of biodiversity. There are two types. One is called as in situ and the other one is called as ex-situ. Okay. Is it okay, students? Hello? Yes?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay. You are able to follow, no? Yes?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, in situ conservation. Now, in situ conservation is the conservation of species within the natural habitat. Within the natural habitat. So, in this method, actually, the natural ecosystem is maintained and it is protected. So, it has several advantages over the ex situ. So, it is in situ means inside, means within the natural habitat only you need to conserve them. So, it is a cost-effective, no doubt, but a convenient method of conserving biodiversity. A large number of living organisms can be conserved simultaneously. And since the organisms actually are adapted to a natural ecosystem, they can evolve better and then it can easily adjust to different environmental conditions. And certain protected areas where the in situ conservation can take place is national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, as well as the biosphere reserves. Already have given you the examples. Okay. So in situ conservation is nothing but conservation of the biodiversity within the natural habitat. Okay. The next is what? Wildlife sanctuaries. Now, what are wildlife sanctuaries? So these are the regions where only wild animals are found. So you need to actually keep only the wild animals. So the human activities such as timber harvesting, cultivation, collection of foods, and the other forest products actually are allowed here as long and as they do not interfere with the conservation project. Also, tourists visit these places for recreation. So in these wildlife sanctuaries, what do they do is, though we do it for human activities are there, but here only the wild animals will be found. But here you have to do them, perform the human activities without disturbing the wildlife, without disturbing, as they do not interfere with the conservation project. And also, tourists also can visit these places for the recreational purpose. Examples you have like Hastinapur Wildlife Sanctuary, which is located in Uttar Pradesh. Then Nandaur Wildlife Sanctuary, which is in Uttarakhand. So these are some of the wildlife sanctuaries. Okay. Next is your national parks. Now, national parks are nothing but these are the small reserves maintained by the government. Now, its boundaries are demarcated by the and human activities such as grazing, forestry, habitat, and cultivation are totally prohibited. Here, there is so human activities are not there here. Only in case of what do you say, the forest level you can go, but not here. So, in the national parks, these are very small reserves which is maintained by the government, and it has got the boundaries where the human activities are not allowed at all. Grazing, forestry, habitat, and the cultivation are not allowed. So you can give the examples like Kanha National Park, which is in Madhya Pradesh, Bandipur National Park, okay, which is Bandipur National Park, which is there in Karnataka. So these are the different national parks. Then you have biosphere reserves. All these will come in what? In situ conservation. These are the in situ conservations. Next is what? Biosphere reserves. Now, biosphere reserves are multi-purpose protected areas. Biosphere reserves are the multi-purpose protected areas where the wildlife, traditional lifestyle of the inhabitants and domesticated plants are protected. Like tourist and research activities are permitted here. Examples are Nanda Devi, which is there in Uttarakhand, and cold desert, which is present in Himachal Pradesh. So biosphere reserves are what? They are nothing but multi-purpose protected areas. So where here you can go about with the wildlife, traditional lifestyle of the inhabitant as well as domesticated plants and animals. They are totally protected. Only you can go about with the tourist and research activities you can do, but all other activities actually are totally not allowed. They are not, what do you say, entertained. Examples are Nanda Devi, which is there in Uttarakhand, and cold desert, which is there present in Himachal Pradesh. So these are all in situ, what do you say, the conservation methods. Examples. Now coming to ex situ conservation. Now ex situ conservation involves the breeding and the maintenance of endangered species in artificial ecosystems. Okay, there it is in natural, but here it is in artificial ecosystems such as zoos, zoo park, nurseries, botanical gardens, gene banks, etc. So here there is a less competition for food, water, and the space among the organisms. So XC2 is totally in an artificial ecosystem. It is not within their natural habitat, but it is outside the natural habitat, that is in the artificial ecosystems. So where here you can involve the breeding as well as the maintenance of these endangered species. So it has the following advantages. So here the animals are provided with longer time and breeding activity. The species will bred in captivity can be reintroduced in the wild, and genetic techniques also can be used for the preservation of the endangered species. So this is all about the XC2 hybridization. Okay, now we'll see what are the different examples. Now, XC2 conservation strategies are botanical and zoological gardens. Now, actually, if you see any university or any, I mean, wherever you go, any college, they'll have the botanical gardens, zoological gardens are there. You have different parks and all those things are there. So here, what do we do is, but in the botanical gardens, we try to actually preserve the plants, whereas in zoological gardens, we try to actually conserve the animals. So these are nothing but dedicated to the collection, cultivation, preservation, and display of a wide range of plants or animals, labeled with their botanical or the zoological names. Okay. Examples you can include Himalayan Botanical Garden, which is present in Uttarakhand. So like that, Nandankanan Zoological Park, which is there in Orissa. So like that. So botanical gardens as well as the zoological gardens. So in botanical gardens, we actually try to preserve the plants, whereas in the zoological gardens, we try to preserve the animals. So this is about few examples we can do, like Himalayan Botanical Garden, then Nandankanan Zoological Park, which is there in Orissa. Okay, so this is about this. The next is what gene bank. Not you can also give in Hyderabad, that is Nehru Zoological Park, which is present in Hyderabad. So that is also there. Also, we try to preserve the animals. So any park, if you know, you can give a list. Okay, so list of what do you say? The parks, list of botanical gardens are there. You can give name them. Here they have given only one or two examples, but a list of examples are there in almost all the things, so you can name them. Okay. Next is what gene banks. Now, what are gene banks? Gene banks actually are used to preserve the genetic material. Like in case of plants, the process involves in vitro storage, freezing cuttings from the plant, or stocking the seeds. That is in the seed bank. In case of animals, this is done by freezing of sperms, eggs in zoological freezers until further need. So you all know gene banks now these days when you talk about the in vitro fertilization with reference to the humans and any other things. Now, in case of the plants also, what we do is, if you try to go for the what do you say, the ornamental plants and the ornamental trees and all those things, there what you have to do, you have to go for the in vitro storage, cuttings from the plant, then collection of the seeds, whatever the seed that you collect, whatever the stock that you collect, then you can preserve them in the gene banks. Okay, so gene banks or the seed banks. In case of animals, I've told you the sperms and the eggs, for especially for the in vitro fertilization. In case of the human beings, uh, in case of the human beings, okay, what you have to do, you can keep them in the freezers until further required. So this is how the gene banks as well as the seed banks work. So this comes under XC2 what is this conservation strategy. Then next is the sacred plants. Now, sacred plants are what? Nothing but the plants which are considered to be sacred from religious point of view, and these also need to be conserved. Like you have examples are tulsi, holy basil. So actually, we perform puja and all those things. So whatever the sacred plants are there, this we can try to conserve them. Okay, by putting these trees. Okay, in our homes also. So sacred plants. So preservation or the conservation of the sacred plants by the humans in the gardens as well as at the home. Okay, so this is about the sacred plants. Next is home gardens. So we can also actually do gardening at home, and it is nothing but a type of farming system that combines different physical, social, and economic functions. So suppose if our what do you say house is very bigger and we have an open place, we can actually go for the cultivation of the plant, not only the fruits, vegetables, at the same time different what is it, towers also, we can go for the cultivation farming system at the in our home place. So that is also we can in one way try to conserve the what do you say, the plants in our by actually making the home gardens. So this is all about the this is one of the way where we can conserve the plants. Okay? So home gardens. So this is one way. So other strategies for biodiversity conservation are, apart from all these things, are all the varieties of food like timber plants, livestock, microbes, and agriculture also should be conserved. All the economically important organisms also actually should be identified and conserved. So unique ecosystem should be preserved first. So that the resources should be utilized efficiently. Pouncing and hunting of the animals should not be done. It should be prevented. And the reserves and the protected areas should be developed. The levels of pollutants also should be reduced in the environment. So if you don't actually pollute the environment, okay, then that way also we can try to protect the area. Then also deforestation should be totally prohibited. Environmental laws should be followed strictly, and the useful and endangered species of the plants and the animals also should be conserved in the nature as well as in the artificial habitat. And also public awareness should be there. So public should be educated, and they should actually they should be given awareness. Awareness should be created among them regarding the biodiversity conservation. So if you follow all these rules, then definitely we can conserve the biodiversity, both the plants as well as the animals. Because for the biosphere to survive, that is the whole universe to survive, both the what do you say, the biotic as well as the abiotic factors, biotic community as well as the abiotic factors are very, very important. So they are interlinked with each other. So that is the reason why it is very, very essential. So these are all the different what do you say, the strategies, other strategies. Okay. So this is all about the for today's class. So anybody is having any doubt? Yes?
No, ma'am.
Is it
Very
okay?
clear, ma'am.
Okay. Actually, here they have given only one or two examples. Now you have a list about. So in the next class, I'll try to give the list, like what are the different national parks. Then you have got different hotspots are there. What do you mean by biodiversity hotspots? Different. Okay. So I will try to give a few of them. Okay. So if you have any doubt for today's class, you can
No, ma'am.
tell.
No, ma'am.
Any doubt? So here also, before going to that, you also should know about what is ecology. So we have talked rightly about the ecosystem. So what is ecosystem? What are the different types of ecosystem we have seen? But what is the structure of an ecosystem? And what are the different functions of an ecosystem also are very, very important. So that we will talk in the next class about just about 10 to 15 minutes. Then we'll try to take another lecture on that, different topic. So if you have any doubt, you can ask. So today's class, is it okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes?
It's very clear, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Is it clear, all of you?
Okay,
Yes,
madam.
ma'am. It is clear.
Okay. Okay, then. It's time now. Shall we leave?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.